This is part 75 of C# tutorial. In this video, we'll continue discussing list collection class in C#. This is continuation to part 74, so please watch part 74 from the C# tutorial before proceeding with this video. We'll be discussing all these functions. First, let's look at this contains function. This function checks if an item exists in the list, and if an item does exist in the list, then this method returns true, otherwise false. Let's look at that in action. We'll be using this customer class in this demo. Notice that this class is very simple with 3 auto-implemented properties: ID, name, and salary. And within the main method, we are creating 3 instances of this customer class: customer 1, customer 2, and customer 3. And then we are creating a list of customers, and to that list we are adding customer 1, customer 2, and customer 3 objects. Now let's check if customer 3 object exists in the list, and to do that we can use contains method. So contains, and look at that, this method expects an object of type customer. So let's go ahead and pass customer 3 object, and look at the return type. It's a boolean, meaning it's going to return a true or a false. If the object exists, it returns true, otherwise false. And let's say if the object exists, we want to print a message stating customer 3 objects exists in the list, else we want to print a message stating customer 3 object does not exist in the list. So since customer 3 object is there, we should get that message. Now let's remove that object from the list. So we only have at the moment customer 1 and customer 2 object in the list. Let me run this now, and look at that, customer 3 object does not exist in the list. Alright, now let's look at using exists function. Now this function also checks if an item exists in the list, but based on a given condition. Okay, and again, if the item exists within the list, then this method is going to return true, otherwise false. So for both of these methods, the return type is a boolean. Okay, so let's see how to use exists function. First of all, let's go ahead and add customer 3 object as well. Alright, now when I use exists function, look at that, it asks me to pass a predicate, so which means we can pass a lambda expression here. Now let's say I want to check whether if this list contains a customer whose name starts with P. Okay, now we do have a customer object whose name starts with P. So if I want to base my search based on that condition, then I can use this exists function. So we need to pass a lambda expression here. So we have, this list of customers contain a customer object. So let's say customer such that customer.name starts with maybe letter P. And we do have a customer whose name starts with P. So it should say customer 3, it should come into this if block and print this message. So let me actually run this. Look at that, customer 3 objects exist in the list. On the other hand, we don't have a customer whose name starts with Z. Okay, so obviously when we run this, the method should return false, and it should come to the else part and print this message. Okay, customer 3 object does not exist in the list. Now you can give any kind of message that you want here. Just in the interest of time, I didn't change that message there. Alright, so the only difference between contains and exists is that with the exists function you can specify a condition, but with contains you can't do that. You pass the object itself to that function. Now let's look at using find function. So this function searches for an element that matches the conditions defined by the specified lambda expression, and then it returns the first matching item from the list. Okay, so again, this condition, this function expects a condition to be passed, and then even if there are several items matching that condition, this function is going to only return the first matching item from the list. Let's look at using that. Okay, now let's say if you look at these employees, there are 2 employees whose salary is greater than 5,000, customer 2 and customer 3. Now let's use find method. So let's get rid of this piece of code. So list customers dot find, and look at that, again we need to pass a predicate. So let's pass a lambda expression. So let's say customer such that customer dot salary greater than 5,000. Okay, now look at the return type of this function. Unlike contains and exists, this function actually returns a customer object. So this find function is going to return the actual object back. Okay, whereas contains and exists return a boolean. It only tells you whether the object exists in the collection or not. But then this find function is going to find that object. If it exists, it's going to return that. Okay, so let's store the returned object in a variable of type customer, and maybe let's call it C. Okay, and look at this, it only returns one customer object back, the find method. And then maybe we want to print the details of the customer, maybe their ID, name, and salary. And to speed things up, I have already typed that. So ID equals name equals salary equals, we have placeholders there, and then we are basically printing their ID, name, and salary. So let me go ahead and run this and see if it's going to print the details of that employee. Look at that, it has printed the details of Pam. So Pam is the first matching customer whose salary is greater than 5,000. So it doesn't give you the second customer. Okay. All right. Now let's look at using find last function. Again, this function searches for an element that matches the conditions that are defined by the specified lambda expression, and then this method is going to return the last matching item from the list. Okay, so if there are multiple items that matches the given condition, then this find last function returns the last matching item. Okay, so the same function, I mean the same code, but then instead of using find, I'm going to use find last. And again, this method expects a predicate, so we are passing this lambda expression here. At this point, it should actually return us this customer, that is Rob. So let's run this and see if it works that way. And look at that, we get Rob, whose salary is greater than 5,000. So that's the difference between find and find last. Find is going to return the first matching item, whereas find last is going to return the last matching item, both based on a given condition. Alright, if you want all the items, then we have find all function. So let's look at using find all function. So obviously, if you look at this function find all, look at the return type. Instead of returning a single customer back, it is returning list of customers back. Okay, so which means this is going to return all the customers who match the given condition from the list. Okay, so let's include list here. So list of customer, and maybe let's call it customers. And then since we have a list here, let's loop through and print the details. And let's use a for each loop. So for each customer, and let's call it C in our customers collection. So we are basically printing out their ID, name, and salary again. So let's run this and see if we get both the employees. Look at that, I get both the employees who, both the customers whose salary is greater than 5,000. Okay. All right. Now let's look at using this find index function. So obviously find index returns the index of the first item that matches the condition specified by the lambda expression. And there are two overloads of this method, which allows us to specify the range of elements to search within that list. Let's look at that in action. So we have this list of customers here. Now let's say I want to find index. So find index returning an integer, so it's going to return the index of the matching element. So we need to specify again a lambda expression here. Let's use the same lambda expression, customer.salary greater than 5,000. And let's say int maybe index equals that, and then let's print the index. Okay, so we have two employees whose salary is greater than 5,000. So this should now return the index of customer 2 object, and the index of customer 2 object is 1 because the index is 0 based. So customer 1 is 0 and customer 2 is 1. And this find index method is going to return only the first matching items index. Now there are two customer objects which match this condition, but we are only going to get the index of the first matching customer. So let's run this and look at that, index is 1 as expected. Now find last index is going to return the last matching items index. We'll come back to that in just a bit, but then look at this. This find index method has got several overloads as well. So we have three overloads here. So basically here we are only specifying the condition, but the next overload you can also specify the start index. So at what point in the list do you want to start searching? Do you want to start searching at position 0 or position 1 or position 2? You can specify that as well using this overload where we can specify the index. So let's specify the index as 2. So if we specify 0, 1, 2 as the index, then we are going to get this customer object. So let's specify the index as 2, and now it should give us 0, 1, 2 as the index. Let's run this and look at that. So it's giving us, from here the matching element is customer 3, and customer 3 index within the list is 3, and we get that. I mean, sorry, 2. Okay, and there is another overload as well. So if you have several items in the list, not only can you specify the start index, you can also specify from that start index how many items you want to look up. Okay, so it's going to look in the range of those elements and then return the index of the first matching element. Okay, now similarly we have another method, find last index. So this is going to return the index of the last matching element. Okay, so let's invoke find last index, and again this method also has got 3 overloads and the use cases are the same. Okay, so now this should return the index of customer 3 object, which is 2, because there are 2 matching elements, but this function is going to return the index of the last matching element. So let's go ahead and run this. So index is 2. Alright, now let's look at converting an array to a list. So how do we convert an array to a list? Simply use this toList method. So first of all, let's get rid of this code here, and then let's create an array. So customer, and maybe let's call it customer array equals new customer array, and then let's create let's set the array size to 3. Customer array of 0 equals customer 1, and similarly let's initialize the array with the rest of the customer objects. Alright, now I want to convert this array to a list. All we need to do is customer array dot toList, and look at the return type of this function. It is returning a list back. Okay, so basically we can store that in a list type. So list customer, and let's call it maybe list customers. And then obviously you can use a for each loop and loop through each customer object and print their details. So for each customer, say in list customers. So this will verify that the list is, the array is successfully converted to a list. And just to speed things up, we have that already typed, so let's copy and paste it there. Let's run it now, and we should get all the 3 customers. Okay, similarly we can convert a list to an array. Okay, so here at the moment, let's get rid of this one, and let's say list customers equals new list of customer, and then to this list let's add customer objects. So list customers dot add customer 1 object, and let's add customer 2 and customer 3 as well. Now to convert this list into an array, we simply say list customers to array, and look at the return type. What do we get back? Customer array. So you can store those elements in an array of type customers, and then loop through them in the same manner. Okay, and we can also convert a list to a dictionary, and to do that again use toDictionary. Very simple and straightforward. Let's look at that actually. So let's convert this list to a dictionary. So when we say list dot to dictionary, and obviously when you want to convert a list to a dictionary, you need to specify the key for the dictionary and then the value for the dictionary. Okay, now value part is optional. Since this is a list of customers, by default if you don't specify the value, then the value is going to be that customer object. So let's just specify the key. So I want the key to be the ID of the customer. So obviously this is going to return a dictionary back. So dictionary of key, the type is going to be, the key of the dictionary is going to be integer, and the value is going to be customer. And let's call it maybe dictionary equals whatever this function is returning. Now let's loop through that dictionary, and dictionary is a collection of key value pair. So for each key value pair, key is going to be of type integer, value is going to be of type customer, and let's call this maybe KVP, key value pair, in the given dictionary. So we are going to loop through that dictionary, and then obviously if you want to get the key from the key value pair, you simply say key. Okay, and then let's say we want to print that. So console.writeLine key equals kvp.key, and then we want to print the details of the customer, the value as well. The value is nothing but the customer object. So let's get the customer object. Let's set the variable name as C, and how do I get the value? Simply say key value pair dot value, and look at that, it's going to return a customer object back. And then here we are printing ID, name and salary of that customer. So let's go ahead and run this now, and we should see the respective keys and value objects. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.